This podcast is sponsored by eBay Canada. eBay Canada has been supporting Canadian small business retailers for 25 years. With their up and running program, you can access eBay's 180 plus million buyers in 190 countries around the world. With up and running, there are no listing fees on up to 200 listings per month, and you only pay fees when you sell. As part of the eBay community, you get real-time advice and inspiration and access to powerful selling tools and insights. Go to ebay.ca/up and running, stay local, and sell global.
Welcome to Canada's podcast, the number one podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs.
Hi, this is Angela Fay from Canada's podcast, welcoming Marc Daniel from NextWork on today's episode. I'm super excited to welcome Marc, who is in Vancouver right now, but you're moving, Marc. Where are you moving between?
We're moving to Lions Bay, beautiful Lions Bay. As I've always said that let's kind of put off the suburban move as long as possible, but we finally had to do it. We're in an apartment at the moment in Lonsdale, but we're mid move, so it's a bit hectic at the moment, and especially in the middle of COVID as well. It's been an interesting experience.
Well, and what was the trigger to finally go into more regional accommodation? Yeah,
especially where there are countless bears as well. I've heard in Lions Bay there's a Facebook group with every single day there's some sort of bear spotter who's putting up exactly the location of these bears, and so we've heard a few horror stories, but we're looking for a little bit more space, a little bit more green space, outdoor, a yard for the little one to play around in, and just be a little bit further away from all the people, I guess.
Metropolis. And yes, your little one's just wee, is that right?
Yeah, 2 years old, keeps us on our toes, and she needs more of a backyard to run around in, and so we're pretty excited. It's we moved from London about 4 years ago, so we actually haven't owned a backyard in 10 years, and so for this is actually pretty exciting for us to get some green space, especially in Canada. It's so beautiful here, just being a little bit more outside, and there's great views up in Lions Bay, so we're pretty excited.
Marc, I'm curious, what brought you from the UK to Canada?
I don't know if I can say Brexit, but that was coincidentally around the same time. So we moved the back end of 2016, and we moved over here for my wife's work. She heads up the sustainability department at Aritzia. So that was a great opportunity for us to move over here. It's we're right now, given everything that's going on in the world, we feel pretty lucky to be in Canada and have this as our adopted country.
Well, and I'm pretty proud to that we've adopted you. So welcome to Canada and BC. I want to really kind of build a little bit now, get a sense of your entrepreneurial journey. So, what's your career path that's led you to this interview with NextWork?
Sure. So it started around, the entrepreneurial journey's only been around, I would say, for about a year. So traditional kind of career path, I studied psychology. I went into business psychology, just being fascinated with organizations and people and how they work and how they tick, and how to get the most out of people. So I've spent my career in the talent space. I've worked for a number of different consulting companies, big consulting firms. So I'm a trained IO psychologist, I guess you guys call it over here. And so that's been my kind of expertise and my background. And then around, I would say about a year ago, I wouldn't say I've always had an itch to scratch with trying something else, but I think recently it's been something that more and more people are looking at doing. And instead of taking that linear career track, it's saying, well, actually, there's more things out there. to try. And I think people are taking a little bit more risks. especially with COVID at the moment. I think that's either forcing people or opening up opportunities for people to explore a more entrepreneurial or riskier route for them,
Right.
which in many ways is it's obviously not a great situation for a lot of people, but I do think there are I like to see the positives in a lot of things, and so I think there are a lot of opportunities for people to do things and try things out that they perhaps otherwise wouldn't have if the opportunity wasn't there and we weren't in the context that we're in. Just in my own entrepreneurial route, I still don't think of myself as an entrepreneur at all. It seems a little bit weird to say that, but I first came up with this idea for NextWork about a year and a half ago. I'm certainly not the first person to focus in on the experienced population, so older workers. But with my parents retiring, my parents are both kind of knowledge workers. My mum's an accountant and my dad's an office manager. And they both were approaching the traditional retirement age and wanting to continue working. They loved what they did. They were great at it. They were great value for their organizations to keep on, and they wanted to continue working, but on a flexible basis. I think that speaks to a lot of people out there globally who want to continue working, want to continue having an impact, adding value, feeling connected to people. And simply the way that we're set up at the moment with fixed retirement, that concept of retirement is kind of dying away at the moment. And so what I wanted to do is create a service or a solution to say, hang on a sec, we've got all this talent that is leaving the talent pool. We've got these companies that are saying they have a huge skills shortage. We have an aging population. People are working and living longer. They're healthier. There's a ton of research to suggest that people actually benefit and live longer if they continue working, and especially if they continue working in something they're passionate about and they enjoy. So you've got all these kind of trends, and for me, it was I didn't really have a light bulb moment, more that something needs to be done, and no one seems to be doing anything about it at the moment. And so I looked to set up NextWork as a solution to that. The underemployment and unemployment of older workers, and to connect them with companies that need that experienced talent, but in a very kind of on-demand kind of way.
I am completely intrigued by the number of companies that I have seen pop up that are on-demand talent platforms. Whether it's specialized lawyers on demand with CEO Law, who was another interviewee with us, and another group that we did who are sales professionals niche, and you have niched out in the mature professionals side of things. And there's lots of them. I'm with you. My parents are retiring, and once a week I go into my mom's place and she's brainstorming on what business she could set up or what, and she's 76 and still has a huge amount of energy and passion for work and being connected in the community. So I'm living and breathing it myself too.
Yeah, exactly.
What would be your response to the perception that perhaps this mature audience, right, or this mature talent pool is disconnected when it comes to what's changed or the technology that is required from companies now? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first, on your point around the proliferation of these talent platforms, I do think that is the future. And I do think this concept of open talent is going to be, people need to expect that that's going to be much more available. And simply, I mean, with COVID happening, it makes talent much more accessible. It's more cost effective for organizations, and with the pace of change so rapid at the moment, and it's probably been accelerated with COVID, so companies are having to digitally transform and not understanding what skills they need at the moment, let alone what skills they need in 6-12 months, because no one really has an idea what the world's going to look like in 2021, because no one had an idea what the world would look like in 2020. At least I didn't. And having access to on-demand expertise is simply a win-win for organizations and for people. And I don't know who said this or who was the original author of this, but I remember coming across a quote that said that our grandparents had one career for life, one job for life. We will have six or seven jobs for, over our lifetime or our careers. And our children or the next generation will have kind of 6 or 7 jobs at the same time. So that just gives you a little bit of an understanding in terms of what the future is going to look like, which is why these talent platforms have just been popping up. And I expect more and more to continue to do that as it becomes easier for people to kind of access kind of that talent. On your point on experienced workers, what we're saying is, we're not saying that experienced workers are the solution to everyone's problems and they can be used to tackle every single business issue. What we're saying is there's a ton of research to suggest that multi-generational workforces, diverse and inclusive workforces, are much more creative, are much more productive. Companies that really live and breathe that diversity, and it's age diversity, racial diversity, religious diversity, you name it. That there's more and more, as our society becomes more and more diverse, then you have to have a company and decision makers that reflect that customer base. And therefore what we're saying is, look, as we become older as a society, your consumers are older. There's huge economic purchasing power with the 50+ population, and you are going to need to have older workers and age diversity to be an effective organization in the future, and to reflect your customers and to reflect your stakeholders as well. So you need diverse decision makers to operate in the future. So yes, the skill half-life is getting shorter and shorter. But we absolutely see a value for companies to have experienced workers as part of a diverse workforce.
Marc, what about, just because I want to tap into your expertise working in the big enterprise companies and consulting with them or working within them, is there a roadblock, or is there a perception that we need to overcome in order to get companies to adopt this idea faster, as far as how on-demand talent fits within their organizational structure?
Great question. I think there are two big barriers, and one you've touched on is the kind of the direction of travel for the future of work, which is, you've heard a lot about the gig economy, and it has some negative connotations, and but really what it is that more and more people are projected to replace full-time employees. I think one statistic coming out of one of the big consulting firms said that by 2025, in just over 4 years' time, there will be more kind of freelance independent contractors in the workplace than full-time employees. So essentially, full-time employees will have reached a critical mass where full-time employees are the minority. So it just goes to show that as this blended workforce, hybrid workforce, kind of freelancer, vetted talent pools, whatever you want to call it, having a pool of talent that's been vetted that you can tap into on demand is a very attractive proposition for organizations. And I think more and more organizations are adopting it. Now, some have their own talent pools. Some industries are much better at using freelance talent. So tech are a big consumer of freelance talent. So I think that's a barrier, but it's like anything. People have perceptions and perpetuate myths, and I think there are some kind of process issues with incorporating that as an organization. And so I think those will just die away. As we've seen with COVID impacting organizations overnight, companies will have to just get on board with the program, and because it will be the only way that talent will be sourced in the future. The other issue which you mentioned is around experienced workers. Unfortunately, ageism is still an ism, and it's one of the isms that I think will become more prominent. Now, if you look at an organization's diversity and inclusion strategy, obviously with the Black Lives Matter movement, racism is a huge, and gender diversity is at the forefront of most strategies. I think ageism isn't as prevalent as it should be in those strategies, and it definitely will be going forward as people get older and live longer. So I think there are two barriers. One is on the future of work and embracing it. Mm-hmm. And the other barrier is around the value add that experienced talent can bring to your organization. And that's where our vision of retirement comes from.
And so if we were to wave a magic wand and create the future, or at least create the pathway for the future, right? I'm sort of imagining ageism is the perceived roadblock. I'm not going to say, or it's just the perception that we need to accelerate. Mm-hmm. And we can either make like the 10% improvement on this, or we can go boom. What's the 10 times impact if we were to just recreate that concept? What's your thoughts on what it could be?
As in, what the world would look like if I had my way.
If ageism wasn't there, let's do that. If you had your way, what would it look like?
There's, I'll keep it to just to what we're talking about, and not what's happening elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a red wine craft beer discussion.
Exactly. Sure. I would say that all talent had the opportunity and access to work opportunities regardless of age, race, gender, and we're basically saying an equal and fair kind of society. But ultimately we have, it's in the future, I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be it's going to be a necessity to have older talent on your books, because the portion of the working population is shrinking as people get older and are not being replaced fast enough by younger workers. And so it's an inevitability. But in an ideal world, companies would have unmitigated, open access to all of that talent that has been forced out of the labor pool, or voluntarily has left the labor pool but wants to continue working on a part-time basis. Mm-hmm. Companies worldwide could just tap into that talent, and it's great for organizations and it's great for people as well. So it's a win-win situation, and it's the best. Yeah.
But I'm going to pull up on your comment because you already said it earlier, so I'm just going to bring it up and ingest it into this part of the conversation, which is there's longevity there, right? That people will live longer when they're more active and engaged in the community and they want to work. And
exactly.
You know, the retirement was a construct of the future of the past, and our age of retirement was based on a lifespan that has changed so dramatically. And
exactly.
I'm sort of imagining, ageism to be replaced by, I don't know if it's going to flow properly, but wisdomism. Is that a thing? Yeah. You can create that as a thing, like something like they're wise. They have that history that they can bring in as sort of that solid foundation, that essence of being a rock. When the younger generation, like you said, is so accustomed to the pace of change happening so rapidly, and that they're almost like a necessary pause, like a stop and think and strategize before we race ahead. That's kind of how I imagine that mature population could add value as well as the actual hard skills.
Yeah, and I mean, there's you bring up a good point about the concept of retirement. I think that's something that's going away. More and more people are choosing to work, whether it's as part of the gig economy or setting up their own business. There's a statistic somewhere around some of the best entrepreneurs or more over 40 entrepreneurs than under 40. So there's a lot of opportunity in that ideal world situation, I think retirement will have gone away. And so this whole concept of retirement, which as you mentioned was developed in the 19th century, in 1860 something, the German chancellor, or the chancellor of Prussia, came up with this concept of it's a little bit cheeky because the life expectancy was 65 at the time, and he set the cutoff at 65. So not expecting people to actually be around to benefit from the program. But you fast forward 140 years, and we're still saying to people, especially when knowledge work is so prevalent at the moment and it's growing with the digital revolution, it's saying this is not relevant anymore. It's, people don't. Why are we saying to people you have to leave a talent pool at 65 years old? People can continue contributing their entire lives. And what I want to see is a lifelong contribution if people choose to, so that we're actually salvaging talent in a sustainable way. So longevity is a great word you use, and that's what I would look to do by connecting on-demand work and talent. You're helping the longevity cycle, right?
Absolutely.
This podcast is sponsored by eBay Canada. eBay Canada is powering Canadian small businesses. Go to ebay.ca/up and running to open your new global e-commerce business.
Now, I want to touch on a word you use about relevancy. Let's just touch on the concept of, the on-demand talent platforms. And I just want to talk about the systems behind NextWork for a second. But next, what about the relevancy of the HR profession? How do you see it remaining relevant? Do you see, maybe a central coordinator that has like a Salesforce CEO law, the HR departments become really just somebody brokering contacts with NextWork or some of the other platforms? Where do you see it in the future?
It's a really good question. I think we could probably spend a good half an hour on the future of HR. HR is at a critical juncture, I think, in terms of relevance and impact. And what we've seen over the last decade or so is HR really moved from more of a policy shop to a strategic influencer. And we've seen much more having a seat at the table and having strategic influence, and companies recognizing, you're familiar with the lots of companies saying our most important asset is our people, right? And lots of companies say that, but they don't actually mean it and live and breathe it. But we've seen HR become much more of a strategic business partner and having a seat at the table. And we've seen that for a lot of functions, like sustainability, for example. It's critical to how companies are run. And so, having a seat at the table is really important. I think at the moment, HR have to be really bold. I think there are so many issues with mental health at the moment. And so looking after and shaping the employee experience. One thing that we've seen is, with the tech companies shining a spotlight on customer experience and user experience, we're seeing HR much more go into the direction of actually what's the employee experience. And so I think with the future of work, with more and more contractors, HR's job is going to become even more difficult because you're not managing a fixed workforce. You're managing a fluid, hybrid workforce. Some people are in the office, some people will be at home, some people will be working on a laptop in a park bench somewhere. It's being able to reach people as well. I mean, the whole concept of leadership becomes more difficult when you, especially as you abruptly change from managing a central workforce to managing a disparate workforce and dispersed workforce. And so I think HR's role is become a lot more complex overnight. And just picking up on your point around how do you manage that workforce, I think a lot of it's going to be cutting through red tape and enabling change. And I think HR is at a really important point in terms of what's going on in the world and reflecting the need and the crying out for more equality and justice, HR is probably one of the best placed functions and partners to enact change around that. So people ask me kind of who are your main clients, who are you reaching out to? And we do reach out to human resource functions and people functions, as well as executives as well, because HR can be their own worst enemy in espousing change and saying, we need more diverse talent. But then you go to them and say, hey, look, I've got a bunch of, people with tons and tons of experience that can literally come in and do the job, don't need any training, have done it a million times, don't need any training, really cost effective. And there's, still that kind of, that barrier to, well, we haven't done it before. So I think, yeah, it's an interesting time for HR, and certainly lots of change ahead. Yeah.
That's okay. And so going back to, are there any particular trends of either sectors or size of company or any particular consistencies on who is, uptaking with NextWork quickly? Who are the early adopters for you?
So we're focusing on startups and small SMEs, basically. We're starting across North America, but we are focusing on Western Canada and Canada at the moment. Although this is a global platform. There's no reason why we can't expand to the UK, Japan, for example. There's a huge aging population in Japan and other kind of more developed nations with the same sorts of issues around experienced talent. So in terms of industries, there are some industries that are a little bit more traditional versus progressive. Tech gets a bad rep for quite overlooking experienced talent. Okay, that's a way of putting it. But I think there are different industries that are at different levels of maturity, and so you have like financial services, which are going through a lot of change at the moment, and becoming more digitally focused. And so what we're doing is we're focusing on the startups and the SMEs, because that's where on-demand talent is most important and most accessible at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And just picking up on an earlier comment, you said when there are more sort of startups and SMEs in the aging population, even, are you right in the 40 plus? There's a big group. I'm just curious, like on your, on your Indeed or your digital ads, or as you're finding companies to use your services, are you going after that market, sort of the startups, SMEs in the 35, 40 plus age demographic?
We're not, but I think it's a good point in that there are more and more 45 plus, 40 plus entrepreneurs who have always wanted to start their own business and are really successful at it because they have all that experience under their belt. And so, and I think going out to those organizations will be beneficial because they understand, they get it, right? I think there's something that the AARP, of retired persons, the Association of Retired Persons in the US, said that, I can't remember the statistic, but the majority of people over the age of 40 or 45 have experienced some level of ageism. And so it happens as early as 40 years old. And so I think with that kind of demographic, there would definitely be more recognition of that, and probably more openness to embracing that kind of that talent group, for sure.
So you're pretty new at the game. I don't like to talk numbers now, but the only reason I'm going to talk numbers is because I am putting in my diary to connect with you again in like 18 months, 2 years, and go, right, let's talk numbers. So let's compare. Yeah. What kind of volume of talent are you working with right now? Do we have 5 accountants in your portfolio, or 50, or what kind of numbers?
Yeah, so we've obviously COVID. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, we started 6 months ago. Platform
Sorry.
development. Yeah, 6 months
March 2020.
on
Crazy.
on on COVID day, if that was mid-March or whenever the big
Sorry, I'm
lockdown
not
was.
laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's quite sad. Sorry.
But it has presented a lot of opportunity actually. There is unfortunately there is a lot of people that have been let go and furloughed, and this is if you look on the positive side, there's a lot of supply of talent
Absolutely.
who are absolutely open to. I mean, everyone we've reached out to has been really supportive and encouraging around the model, the concept, what we're trying to do. So people definitely buy into the business and the branding and what we're trying to do. We have just over 100 consultants at the moment, independent professionals across Canada and the US.
Yep.
And that's been steadily growing over the last couple of months. And that's spread across finance and accounting, admin support, human resources, and business consulting as well. The only reason why we're starting to develop the different verticals is just purely because we don't want to be a mass market with quite thin talent. We want to really build up the accountants, build up the CFOs. So I don't know how many accountants we've got off the top of my head, but we have a good number of accountants. We have a lot of CFOs, CEOs, bookkeepers, chief people officers, people that have helped multinational organizations through huge transformation efforts, to ex-CEO of one of the biggest corporations in Canada. And so there's a real breadth of talent, and what we're trying to do is build the depth as well in each of those verticals.
Right.
There's no reason why we can't have we're going to open up into marketing and IT soon. And we have a couple of professionals on the books, but that's something that we just, once we get to a critical mass, we'll then open that up a little bit more broadly. Another thing, just if I can touch on what we're looking to do kind of over the next kind of six months, is this concept of alumni talent. So these are people that have basically worked at an organization and have left the organization for whatever reason, typically retirement. And what we want to do is go to organizations and say, look, share with us the people that are retiring, and so we can get them onto the platform, and then you can essentially have your own vetted, proven, on-demand talent pool who can come back and consult with you and fill in any skill gaps you need. They don't need any training. They can come in and have a huge impact. They can mentor. They can take on special projects throughout the organization. So helping companies build their own kind of alumni talent pools, and also they can benefit from peer or competitor talent pools as well. So if you think about just pulling out companies from off the top of my head, so Procter & Gamble and Unilever, for example, being able to access those retired talent pools and then tap into them on demand, and so that people are able to contribute over a lifetime, and we get to keep the talent pool, get that talent in the talent pool.
And how are you positioning yourself with companies themselves? Is it through traditional advertising? I mean, obviously a little bit of storytelling like this, but is there any other ways that you're trying to reach out and penetrate into communities?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything: social media, cold calling, outreach programs, through our own network as well. So I've built up a pretty good network just from working in consulting for a while, and also just reaching out through LinkedIn and other kind of platforms to, if companies are hiring, look this way as well. So it's almost saying, look, you need a bookkeeper. We have 20 bookkeepers dotted around Canada or the US, and because we're fully digital, our fee that we charge is significantly lower than what would be charged by a traditional temp agency or other agency that's trying to connect talent to organizations. So really there are a lot of positives and quick wins for organizations. And so we're just using, like you say, storytelling and replaying that message through a number of different channels.
Well, and I'm always fascinated by the basic business model of companies. It's something that I just find completely intriguing. So just, can you give us a snapshot of how you work? As far as, do you take a percentage? Do you charge a membership fee? What's your revenue source?
Yeah, so the best way to explain it is Airbnb, which most people are familiar with. Instead of connecting hosts and travelers, we're connecting talent and businesses. And so what we do is we provide the consultant fees directly to them, and we add a set percentage on top of that.
Okay.
That the client pays. So we originally had 15% call it a service fee. It's fixed, it's transparent. We add that. So if we connected you with an organization and you were paid $100, the client would pay $115, and the $100 would go to you as a freelancer. And recently we've actually reduced that by 50% as part of COVID-19 and the impact, and to help companies and experienced talent connect a little bit more easier. Okay. We've reduced that to 7.5%. So for an organization coming on and tapping into a CFO and you're paying 7.5%, that's a significant cost saving. And if you think about the process of going through temp agencies and other types of agencies, you can have someone within 24 hours of coming onto the platform and finding someone. So, and you can message them directly. Yeah. And you can negotiate with them directly. People can pay either a fixed price. So I could say to you, can you do this for $1,000? And then you could say, I could do it for $900 or $1,100. Okay. Or you can pay an hourly rate. So your hourly rate is posted on your profile. And so if you're hiring a CFO, you could say, look, I need you for 2 months. Can you just fill out these timesheets? And you can send that directly to the client. They can review it, approve it, and pay you all through the platform. So the payment, all of it's fully digital. Invoicing, contracting, messaging, sharing files, it's all online, and that enables us to offer a much more cost-effective service fee than others. And
your system behind the scenes helps administer all of those steps that you just referred to, right? The payment,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I said that we've been operational for 6 months, but the platform development took about 9 months. Sure. And it's all custom built, so it's all tailored. Clients can come on. We either recommend talent if so they fill in a few questions. These are the skills we're looking for. We need someone within 2 months. We need an executive level position, and we need them to start immediately. And yes, they can work remotely. We'll then say, well, look, here's 5 people that we've got on our books that you can speak to and engage straight away, and we can do that within a day or two of turning around. Or you can actually search a talent database yourself. If you want to search and see what's out there, you can actually do that yourself. So what we want to do is just make it more accessible and more transparent and more open for organizations. And as I said before, as we move into creating these alumni talent pools for organizations, they'll be able to go in and just see their own organization's talent pool and others, should they wish to.
Well, and that's something that kind of addresses a question for me, which was that you and I talked about earlier about the fear of the attrition, right? So once somebody is connected to a company, why would they continue using NextWork, right? What's the value proposition of staying with you? And the alumni is one, right? I mean, that's a fantastic response to that. Are there any other key value propositions that address the potential for attrition?
When you say attrition, kind of going outside of the platform, like why stay with us? Why not try and circumvent the platform? And
yes, exactly.
So typically talent platforms or digital talent platforms will, in their terms and conditions, they'll have something in there which says there's a fee to pay. Usually it's an absolute figure, or it could be relative, and it's typically the same as their service fee, and you pay it up to what you'd pay that person in a year's kind of compensation. So there's that there's that mechanism to say, look, it's not in your best interest to circumvent the platform. But I mean, those are rarely enforceable. What I like to think is that you're creating enough of a value proposition through the brand, through the social purpose, through the community aspect of it, and this is something that a lot of platforms are addressing now, which is creating a community around NextWork. So we've got a lot of talent that are all at similar life stages. They probably know similar people. They may have even worked at the same organization. So creating much more stickiness around on the talent side and building that community. And then it's not in their interest to circumvent the platform because they're really, I'm not sure what the saying is, but they're kind of destroying their own home if they did that. So that's what we want to be, and create a little bit more kind of value and stickiness around the brand and the community and what we're trying to build here.
When I mean, I know that's part of the thing is, you know, behind you is keep doing what you love on your own terms, right? As you're kind of, exactly. Which I think is fantastic. I know I'm probably going to be in your alumni at some point in the very near future.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, speaking about ageism, it's age is the only ism where all of us are going to be, if we live long, healthy lives, we're all going to be older at some point. So it's the only ism that all of us are impacted by.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So true.
Yeah.
Perfect. Hey, Marc, is there any other insight? Well, one thing I want to, we've already talked about, you know, kind of living and here in BC and why you came, but is there anything else that you'd like to share as far as Canada as a destination, or BC or even Vancouver as a destination for doing work, and what opportunities there are or challenges that you see in the work that you do?
I can't speak highly enough of Canada, number one. As I said, very grateful for being adopted by this lovely country, and I'm actually going to be a citizen, or potentially, if I pass the test, in a couple of months, hopefully.
Yay.
From a work perspective, thank you. From a work perspective, recommendations. I think there's a really vibrant startup community here. I think the tech industry is really flourishing and blossoming. And so I think it's a really good destination for, and also from a long-term perspective, I think it's a very attractive destination for talent. And I mean, people like myself, coming from the UK, but just knowing the people that we know here have all come from other countries, other industries, and you know, end up loving it here because of what it can offer. You know, like most places, it's not, there's no one place that's absolutely perfect, but I think it ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people, and I think it's going to become even more popular once the kind of, hopefully, the COVID pandemic unfolds.
Are there any mentors or professional associations or mediums that are a big influence for you that you can recommend to others?
Startup Vancouver. It's a startup network for entrepreneurs. I think the biggest thing I could advise other entrepreneurs out there is to build a network around yourself, and build a network of smart people, and build a network of connected people, and reach out, and because I feel like everyone is in this together, and there's a real sense of camaraderie around being an entrepreneur. And I think with COVID especially, more and more people have, like I said earlier, been forced to become entrepreneurs. And so now's really the time to rally around each other and support each other. And I think these networks like Startup Vancouver can really help. So no one's alone in this. And I'd really encourage everyone to reach out to those networks and just attend, or even, I don't know if they're even holding physical meetups anymore. So it's so much easier on digital, right? And you have digital
Absolutely.
Friday happy hours. So depending on your drink persuasion, you can just join those, and they're pretty inclusive. So I'd really recommend people join those those networks, which are even more accessible now that people are doing virtual Zooming.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and it's lovely to have you in our network here at Canada's podcast, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person. Let me know if you're ever coming over to Vancouver Island. By the way, we'll have to drop in. We'll have to have a happy hour on my back deck. That would be fabulous.
Absolutely, and I think we're actually facing each other from Lions Bay, or right. Kind of looking towards each other.
Light Morse code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'd love you to meet you, and thanks so much for your time and having me on the show. It's been great.
Well, I'm going to leave with a last sort of Angie vision for NextWork is to be, definitely Canada's #1 platform for mature talent brokering.
Absolutely.
Within 5 years. So all the power, just conjuring that up for you.
I like it.
Right.
There's one last thing to say is that we do, just to kind of encourage networking, we actually have something on the platform where people can refer their friends and clients as well, and we actually give them back 1% of the project fees to say thank you for growing the community. So yeah.
Great. Well, then, I guess I almost failed, but I'll say now, what's the best way to get a hold of you post-podcast, Mark?
Yeah, so drop me an email, marc@nextwork.com. So that's MARC at nextwork with an X and an ED on the end.com, or LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. And please do reach out, and I'd love to connect. And I've got a lot of time to speak to other people on the journey as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Ange. Cheers.
This podcast is sponsored by eBay Canada. eBay Canada is here to help. They've been supporting Canadian small business retailers for 25 years, and their up-and-running program is getting Canadian businesses online today. Visit ebay.ca/up-and-running. Stay local and sell global with eBay.